In my paper, I researched the relationship between the NCAA Division I football and basketball leagues, the players, and the universities. There are two major topics to focus on when looking at this issue. First, in their quest to obtain enormous profits, are the NCAA and colleges taking advantage of Division I men's basketball and football players? The NCAA, universities, and media companies make millions of dollars from gifted players who captivate sports fans to pour over their tournament brackets. The players who are the backbone of the college sports industry are left on the outside looking in, asking, "Where's our share?" Next, if you determine that Division I men's basketball and football players are being mistreated, the question is, how would compensating college athletes affect not only college athletics, but also academics? Division I basketball and football has a long and successful tradition. It is very reasonable for people to question how an enormous change in the structure of the NCAA would affect the immensely profitable product. Things get further complicated because the NCAA prides itself on education, so universities often must prioritize academics. The argument that college athletes are unfairly treated is focused around the billions of dollars generated by Division I basketball and football. College football is the second most lucrative sport in the U.S., trailing only the National Football League. There is no question universities receive millions of dollars off of their college athletes. Coaches' salaries are also rising to the point where they are often the highest paid officials in many states. The coaches, universities, and NCAA are clearly benefiting off of market, pricing, and competition. However, the players aren't granted this opportunity. The NCAA has defended price fixing on the basis that college athletes are students and therefore not entitled to the compensation. The most common theory most people argue is that college athletes shouldn't be compensated, well, because they're just college students. The argument is very simple and doesn't have much of an explanation, but traditionalists reason that because the athletes are students, they are only entitled to scholarships. Other people worry that the product would be tarnished if college athletes were paid. The two main worries are that allowing schools to pay athletes would hurt competitive balance, which would cause fans to stop watching. Others point to the fact that compensating the football and basketball players would cause the elimination of non-revenue generating sports. After my research and considering the different stances, I believe that Division I basketball and football players are taken advantage of. Given the enormous amount of revenue universities are generating from the workers who are unable to realize their fair market value, there is no question in my mind that the NCAA and universities are taking advantage of athletes. The idea that athletes can't receive compensation because they are students is ridiculous. Students who have music scholarships are not prohibited from being paid in musical events. Only student athletes are required to maintain their amateur status and not realize their fair market value. The NCAA's claim that universities can't afford to pay college athletes is not persuasive. With colleges generating millions of dollars in revenue from NCAA athletes, why should football and basketball players be required to cover the expenses while football and basketball coaches' salaries are increasing exponentially? Most of the evidence I found when researching this topic involved the money being generated in Division I basketball and football. These figures showed the financial power the NCAA has as a business. Here are a few of the numbers that were most important to forming my opinion. In 2016, CBS and Turner Sports paid an estimated $10 billion just for the rights to broadcast March Madness for 8 years. In 2017 alone, the NCAA was paid $707 million for the rights to broadcast March Madness. In 2015, the football subdivision of the NCAA generated $3.4 billion for broadcasting the college football championship. The NCAA isn't the only people making money off of college athletics. College coaches' salaries have increased by 500%. There are 5 college basketball coaches that earn salaries more than $4 million a year. This evidence is extremely important to the topic because to fully understand the importance of this issue, you have to understand how enormous the amounts of money at stake are for everyone involved. An interesting way the topic of compensating Division I basketball and football players relates to our course material is boosters. In Chapter 11, Overman talks about how boosters affect college athletics. He goes into the different types of boosters and how some are good and some are bad. Overman also states that most of the problems with boosters is when they are providing players with under the table money due to the fact that these players feel like they are not receiving the compensation they deserve. Some of the players are illegally receiving money for their work, while the athletes that follow the rules are left with nothing. Overman believes that compensating college athletes would ultimately end most of the problems surrounding under the table money. The first step at furthering the research on this topic would be at looking into the possible ways that NCAA could actually compensate Division I basketball and football players. There has been a lot written on whether or not the NCAA athletes are being mistreated, but there are few plans or opinions on how the best way the NCAA could actually implement these changes. Next, we should start looking at how other sports and divisions are treated inside the NCAA. While other college sports don't generate the revenue that college football and basketball do, it is important that these athletes are treated fairly. They train and travel as much as the revenue generating sports, and there is serious question if they are able to receive a proper education. Until 5 years ago, only a minority of sports commentators, such as ESPN's Jay Billis, have advocated for better treatment of Division I basketball and football players. Recently, some well-known professional athletes, analysts, professors, and fans began calling for change. It seems that the times have changed and there is a real public support for compensating student athletes. This has allowed players and celebrities to be more vocal in their fight against the NCAA without worrying about backlash. The treatment of college athletes might be the biggest discussion in the sports business world at the moment. Understanding the arguments for and against this issue can be transferred to many aspects of professional management. High school programs are affected by the NCAA's decision on this matter because of recruiting. Professional sports are also greatly affected by how the NCAA handles this matter because it shapes how the professional teams can interact with their future players. Researching this topic is beneficial because the NCAA's decisions affect every level of the sports business world. The practical application for this issue is determining whether the NCAA should change its most pivotal rule that college athletes can be compensated. The decision has enormous importance across the nation in and outside the sports world. Not only could it lead to thousands of athletes across the nation getting paid, but other groups and organizations who are unable to realize their fair market value might be next. For this reason, courts, boards, and essentially any decision makers in the industry must have the full information on the issue.